Well, holy fucking shit! Hey guys, RanterInShades here, exercise my first memorize vlog style. Happy New Year to you all. I guess this is how I'm going to be proceeding with my year-end videos going forward, as it's proven to work well for me. In the past, I liked posting the best songs video first, as a means of celebrating the year that just ended before saying, also these songs here, you can keep those. But I feel like ripping the songs on the worst list apart hypes you as the viewer up for seeing the good that the year had to offer, especially since more people tune in for the worst songs videos, so it advertises the best songs video coming after. Hopefully you do check that video out when it drops, or if you're watching this in the future, hopefully you check it out after you're finished watching this video, because it does expand on a lot of the themes I'm about to bring up here. Since the last couple years I've been making these videos have included some mention of this, I'm going to begin this prologue by letting you guys in on something that happened behind the scenes when I was working on last year's year-end videos. I got COVID. I didn't mention it at the time since I felt it wouldn't be appropriate to do so given the uplifting and optimistic tone I had about everything surrounding the move to my apartment, but the first half of December last year had me dealing with going to bed and waking up with a fever and not being able to keep food down. It was the sickest I had felt since the 3 weeks in March of 2009 when I had pneumonia, and it was because of that I couldn't do this during the Fancy Like segment last year.
I hope you're proud of yourself.
Thankfully, one of the concerts I was supposed to go to the week I tested positive, Evanescence, postponed to the next month, but I was not happy with having to miss the other concert I was supposed to see that week, Thank You Scientist on tour with intervals. I was able to recover in time to both film Best and Worst Songs of 2021 and have official GATG over for New Year's, where the two of us, along with my chat mod Space Metal Ferrari 248, went out to Cambridge to see Seven Spire's record release show for their album Gods of Debauchery.
Debauchery!
By the way, on the note of official GATG, I'm wearing the shirt for his band, Up Here on Bound, who released their debut album, Multiplicity, this year. So anybody who's ever asked me over the last 4 years, where's Stoutmeister? You have your answer. Go support his stuff. Anyway, that was the best New Year's Eve of my life. A couple months later, I would not only go to my 100th concert, Killswitch Engage, who had their former frontman Howard Jones' current band Light the Torch on tour with them, and thus I got to see Howard join Killswitch on stage to sing some songs with Jesse Leach, but the mask mandate I spent a good bit talking about last year was also lifted. After all this time, things finally felt normal. Obviously, this doesn't mean COVID is gone for good. I doubt we'll ever truly be the same as we were before the pandemic, even with this normalcy. That'd be like saying things were the same after World War I ended. As extreme of a comparison as that probably is, after something as catastrophic as what we dealt with in 2020 to 2021, we know that's not true. COVID is always going to exist, just like any other sickness. But it's nice to not be living in a world where the entire planet is acting hysterical over the matter and instating a bunch of restrictions, even if they were for the benefit of less people getting sick. So that was a big thing I liked about this year. On a related note though, with regard to things never truly being the same, this is also applicable to the downward spiral I've alluded to in the past couple year-end videos. I mentioned at the end of Worst Songs of 2021 that sometimes a downward spiral is necessary for your own character development. And while I still believe that, that doesn't mean it ever truly ends. 2022 was a year of detachment for me. Detaching from people I didn't think were healthy for me to be around, detaching from certain cultures I wasn't wanting to contribute to any more than I might have before, and focusing more on the things that make me happy and that I find to be productive. And while a part of me still feels a sense of loss from that detachment, I ultimately feel it's what's best for me. It's a lot like at the end of the Asperger's episode of South Park, where Stan finally accepts the changes in his life brought on by the events of the previous episode, and he realizes that while things may never be the same, it's ultimately for the best that his life takes a left turn or two. The difference being that unlike in the South Park episode, I'm not being handed a reset, but I see that as kind of a good thing. But apart from that, 2022 did have its good parts. This was also the year of the huge video projects. I've always taken pride in my channel's evolution, going from simple webcam rants with minimal editing to the high-quality commentary essay content you see now, and I see this being the year I reached that final form in a way, and in come the people arguing semantics about my channel name. Just about every video I made this year has been a dynamite production, from videos like the heartfelt tribute to my past known as the Best and Worst Songs of 2012 videos I made in honor of the 10-year anniversary of graduating high school, which I received a number of compliments on at the 10-year reunion get-together we had a month ago that meant the world to me, to the What's Wrong Withs on Megadeth and Korn, to the Whitesnake video, and especially the magnum opus known as the Disney Songs Countdown. While YouTube has never been something I ever intended on making my job, even if I was in the right position to do so, making those videos has been such a gratifying process, and they've helped deepen the passion I have for editing, and hell, the video making process in general. Even writing the script has me feeling excited at all the fun I'm going to be having with this project. So as a means of giving one more metaphorical middle finger to that downward spiral, let's begin my yearly pop music evaluation where I rip off every music reviewer ever, starting with the songs on this year's Billboard year-end chart that deserve a ripping into. The rules for this list, as usual, are that the songs have to be on the year-end chart for this year, and I have to really dislike them. If you want to double check that the songs here are actually on the chart, feel free to give the corresponding link in the description a peep. Trust me, I don't want to have to go on a tirade like I did in Best Songs of 2012 about people that missed that point. If I don't include a particular song in here that you think I should have, it either means I'm indifferent to it or I haven't heard it, mostly because I prioritize listening to stuff I like over stuff I dislike. And if you disagree with any of my picks here, at least listen to what I have to say and try to be cool about it. Without further ado, let's begin our dissection of the worst hit songs of 2022. Number 10. I've made it known before that I'm not a Beyonce fan. I ain't gonna deny that she's talented and has some genuinely good songs like Love on Top, aka the song of a million key changes, but the really dumb songs of hers are really dumb. I wouldn't call Break My Soul as irritating as the songs of Beyonce's I've discussed before, Drunken Love or 7-Eleven. It certainly sounds better, but it's still quite lazy. For one, the chorus is really repetitive, saying "you won't break my soul" over and over. But the big thing that makes this song vibe weirdly with me is the connection it tries to have to real life. The first verse has Beyonce talk about quitting her job and complaining about how hard that job worked her. This is the kind of song that would be a lot better received if it were made by someone who wasn't one of the most famous singers of all time. Or maybe if it were made by Jennifer Lopez at the end of the South Park episode where she works at a La Taco, at least the struggle would make sense there. With someone like Beyonce, it doesn't sound like it makes sense. This is basically the same problem I had with Started From the Bottom by Drake, how this isn't a person you really buy being someone that's speaking from experience when they've been these establishment icons for about as long as we've known of them. I get that songwriting, production, and performing can be really strenuous, especially when it's not giving you much time to yourself, but it's not like this is really backbreaking labor. Don't get that twisted, I'm not about to go all get a real job here. No one hates that argument more than me. When you're getting paid to perform a task, it's just as much of a job as anything. But what Beyonce does sure sounds far easier than working a 9-to-5 with a shitty boss. What's more is that this song inspired a bunch of people to quit their jobs. I can understand if someone were in a situation where they might have not been thinking clearly and just stormed out on impulse, and I can also understand wanting to jump straight into pursuing your actual ambition, but you need to have a plan and make sure you aren't fucking yourself in the ass. It is a risky move, and I doubt that's something Beyonce has much of an understanding of, speaking as someone who's had it substantially easy her whole life. I don't want to go the route of acting like she's responsible for something there's no way she could have predicted, but it's freaky that people took this song that much to heart. She also tries to rap in the second verse, and it sounds weak, especially when she rhymes outside with outside twice, to the point where I found myself thinking it would sound better if even one of the usual suspects provided a verse. But to be fair, I can see that being a bit edgy for a Beyonce song. The closest thing to a feature on the song is a sample from a rapper by the name of Big Freedia that sounds like a crappy Lil Jon impression.
Release your anger, release your mind, release your job, release the time.
Again, Break My Soul is a song I could see working if it was made by someone else. I've listened to plenty of other pop artists that sound like this, and could potentially see an argument being made that they've dealt with some grind in their lives. Even if I was a fan of Beyonce, I don't think this is stuff I'd want to hear from an artist like her. Number 9. Country rap crossovers have always been a weird phenomenon for me. Those kinds of southern twangy vocals have always felt like a weird flavor to be mixed in over top a rap beat. We've been seeing a lot of country artists involve themselves in these kinds of collaborations. This one comes from a rapper, Lil Durk, which that name not only reminds me of the nickname my brother had for one of his friend's ex-girlfriends, but sounds like Lil Derp, which is just as dumb. Featured on the song is country artist Morgan Wallen, someone I referenced in my cancel culture video, as someone who was given that treatment in response to a clip of him drunkenly yelling the N-word, but yet didn't have his career terminated, if you couldn't tell already, leading people to think, oh, he wasn't really canceled. Now, I don't really listen to country, as most people that watch me know, but despite how I feel about that drunken outburst, from what I've heard from Morgan in passing, he sounds genuinely talented, and I hear a lot of nice things about his music. I'm mainly saying this because I don't want people thinking I'm only featuring Broadway girls on here because it features a guy that said the N-word. Morgan's voice on here, though, sounds really overproduced. I get that autotune and other such vocal production is basically a standard, even in genres outside of pop, rap, and R&B, but the stuff makes him sound like a guy from Florida Georgia Line, and I don't think that's someone you want to sound like. Both he and Durky Durk are singing about lousy experiences they had with women on Broadway. Something I should mention, though, is that the Broadway being referred to is actually a strip in Nashville, as opposed to Broadway in New York City, but I doubt your average listener is even going to be aware that there's more than one Broadway in the world. I know I wasn't. The only way I think anyone would be able to pick up up on that is with the line, "I met her down at Aldean's," and ask,
Wait, does Jason Aldean have a bar in New York?
but to me it feels really arbitrary, since I'm not sure if anything being described here is only specific to women you meet at any place in the world called Broadway. Dirk's verse has a number of really forced-sounding country references, from the mention of a horse to the line about riding a bull like cars. It sounds awkward coming from a guy like him. He also mentions that the girl he's trying to talk to isn't into rap, but yet is aware that he is a rapper, and I guess he's good enough at appealing to her country sensibilities that she's really cool with him, or maybe she's only talking to him because of his association with Morgan Wallen. Broadway Girls is essentially trying to be a commentary on the kinds of women that only try to get with you because you're famous, but I don't really get that impression from Morgan's verse. The song as a whole is just really confusing, and I have barely any idea what the overall message is supposed to be, other than shit some manosphere douche would try to shove down your throat. Broadway Girls is just convoluted, and I walk away from the song mostly confused at what it was I just listened to. I feel kind of bad saying this because I know that there are a lot of people that genuinely love Morgan's music and view him as one of the best in country right now, and I'm sure he is, but this just isn't a song I think anyone wants to see him attached to, nor is it how I imagine people are wanting to hear him sound. Speaking of songs I don't like seeing a particular artist attached to, number 8. Is it me, or were the writers of this song really inspired by that one line from American Pie? You know which one.
What exactly does third base feel like?
You want to take this one?
Like warm apple pie.
I mean, yeah, I love the movie, but I don't think I want to hear songs about pie. Wait a second. Songs about pie? Are they fans of Warrant? If Johnny Lane didn't hate himself enough for writing that song, I'd hate to know how he feels about its influence here. Okay, enough about that. Sweetest Pie is a song I've always been quite conflicted on. On one hand, Dua Lipa's parts are on point, and it sounds like a song of hers I dig the shit out of. It's Megan that really ruins it for me, though. On the surface, this feels like a super sugary pop jam, like what an artist like Dua Lipa would make, and it's just not the kind of thing you want to hear an artist like Megan Thee Stallion on. She's known for being really abrasive and in your face, and it doesn't mix well at all with an instrumental like this, or with someone like Dua Lipa. I say this largely because Megan's verses are indeed very sexual, as is to be expected. She talks about her pussy and her ass, innuendo after innuendo, like what she did in WAP, this one line that raised an eyebrow. Todd in the Shadows noted in his review of the song that it sounded like Megan was trying to make a Doja Cat song, and I could definitely see that. When I talked about Kiss Me More in my Best Songs video last year, I mentioned how while the song sounds sexy and sugary, the sexuality in the lyrics was mild at worst. We weren't being force-fed raunchiness every other line, but that's what we're getting from Megan. Of course, this also means that Warrant comparison from earlier was not for nothing. If you think Cherry Pie is about how delicious cherry pie is, then you need to work on your analytical skills. That is a song about poontang if there ever was one, and pie has pretty much become accepted as a double entendre if that American Pie clip is any indication, and that's what Sweetest Pie is going for. As much as I view Warrant as being a good band that deserved better, I've always seen Cherry Pie as being probably their weakest song, and that's not even taking into account the tragic story about how that song was conceived. If I view that song as weak, what makes you think I'd think much differently about this one? Another line I really gotta highlight is this. I had to double check what I was hearing there, because my first time hearing this song, I thought she was saying "let M eat me up," which is really fucked up. I get what she's trying to go for, making a reference to a fairy tale about two children coming across a witch's candy house while lost in the woods, but these are children, and they should not be eating you. Thankfully, Megan was saying him and not M, so she won't have to deal with any potential investigations. But what that now means is that either her enunciation was off there, or she should have used a different reference. But yeah, you guys know how much I don't care for Megan Thee Stallion at all, and Dua Lipa's presence doesn't do much to save the song. If it were just Dua on this song, I might not see it as being on the level of songs like Levitating or Break My Heart, but it'd be passable. But Megan messing up the vibe the way she does kinda makes the song worse, since it stunts whatever potential it might have had. It's just that mismatched, and Megan really just needs to stay in her lane and leave Dua alone. Number 7. Okay, so I've always been one to stick up for Imagine Dragons in the past. I've never thought of them as being a great band, but they're far from the worst. The worst I could say about them is that their stuff can be kinda bland, but I'd still take listening to them over a number of other artists. But Enemy here is what I see putting a lot of perspective on why people feel as negatively about Imagine Dragons as they do. On one hand, I like the triplet rhythms Dan Reynolds uses in the verses, but the chord progression is what gets it to sound kinda grating. It's basically just alternating between G major and F sharp major, which aren't chords that sound good together. And to make matters worse, it lasts throughout the whole song. Enemy is in the key of B minor, and the diatonic chords that correspond with the notes in this scale are as follows: B minor, C sharp diminished, D major, E minor, F sharp minor or F sharp minor 7, G major, A major, and back to B minor. The G major chord, the 6th degree, works in this key because the root 3rd and 5th, G, B, and D, are all notes in the B minor scale. The root 3rd and 5th of F sharp major are F sharp, A sharp, and C sharp. And if you remember the chords I laid out in the scale, you'll notice that there is no A sharp in the key of B minor. Now, what's common to do with songs in minor keys is to change the 5th degree from a minor chord to a minor 7 chord to change it into a harmonic minor scale that raises the 7th degree, so the A sharp would work there, but it doesn't sound like I'm hearing an F sharp minor 7 there, it just sounds like plain old F sharp major, and it makes the song sound really derpy and lopsided. Sure, music theory doesn't necessarily dictate rules for music, it's really just a tool that explains music and conventions for what tends to work in compositions, and through that understanding, we can see why this progression doesn't sound like it works. But even if you really don't give a shit about all that music theory shit I like going on about, the progression is still boring as fuck. Another thing of note is that this is also the theme song for an animated series on Netflix called Arcane, based on the video game League of Legends. My only knowledge of this show's existence comes from a video Schaeferless Productions made touching on it, but along with the fact that that was a mostly joke video he made for April Fools, along with me not being a gamer nor someone that watches much recent animated shows, I wasn't being left with much of an impression other than, hey, the animation looks pretty cool, neat. That said, my only familiarity with League of Legends comes from my friend Skullripper4900 talking about it a lot, as well as a metal band I'm into, Pentakill, being tied into the game. Maybe I'm out of touch here, but just from listening to Pentakill alone, they sound like a band that really fits a badass video gamey atmosphere. That's really not something I could say about a band like Imagine Dragons, even with the songs of theirs I can dig. Along with that, the lyrics are pretty hard for me to follow, but that could be due to my unfamiliarity with Arcane. They strike me as trying to sound dramatic, but then the chorus sounds kind of pessimistic and pathetic. Everybody wants to be my enemy. Why? I don't feel like I'm being given context as to why we're supposed to see Reynolds or whoever as a tragic or sympathetic character. Could watching the show answer that question? Maybe. But considering this is the theme song of the show, I feel like it should be explaining a little more than it is. It's supposed to be a window into the main premise of the show, and I don't think that this song does its job. Not even the rap guest verse from JID, or J-I-D, with his wannabe Eminem delivery is enough to help there. Come to think of it, Eminem is someone that strikes me as a more tragic and sympathetic character than Dan Reynolds in this song. Imagine Dragons has always been a band I've tried really hard to see the good in, mainly because how many other bands, let alone bands that have some kind of background in rock, are achieving this type of success? But there comes a point where they become more and more of a caricature for commercial core, and if they haven't reached that point before in 2017, 2018, I'd say they certainly have now. I still think that they're far from the worst, or even most mediocre band out right now, but I want to see them do something exciting to subvert everyone's expectations of how they sound. It might alienate the normies in their audience, for which there are many, but if there's anything I've learned from following bands, it's that shaking things up even a little can do so much in terms of making the music interesting. And no matter how much potential I might see, Enemy isn't a song I see doing that. Number 6. I feel like Drake's been becoming a weirder and weirder artist to talk about. This year he put out a surprise album with a cover that looks like some local deathcore band's logo, and much like the album he put out last year, the songs racked up streams, but yet it didn't really feel like a lot of people liked the album. But this song, Knife Talk, doesn't come from the deathcore album, it comes from the one with the NFTs on the cover. Just like Sweetest Pie, this is one of those songs where it feels like the beat would have been better utilized by someone else because it sounds too good for what we're getting. 21 Savage is the featured artist on here, and weirdly enough, I've said a similar thing when I talked about his song a lot in 2019. I really hate the inflection he has at the end of all his lines in his first verse.
To stay ahead in this picture, drink serve like it's liquor. Street life will have you catching up to God quicker. Sticker.
You know, where everything has a question mark at the end of it? With an upward inflection at the end of every sentence?
Thankfully he cuts it out in his next verse, but then I'm immediately asking why was he doing that in the first place? Knife Talk is basically 21 Savage trading verses with Drake about gang stuff. Again, to call back to a lot, I can buy 21 Savage having some experience with that kind of stuff, but that's just not what I associate with Drake. When I think of Drake, I think of someone that mumbles about girl problems or trying to sound sexy, in addition to someone that's either gotten really lucky with his creation of meme templates or forces memes out of his music videos. Neither of these are exactly gangster, at least from my pasty white nerd understanding. Neither of them sound great in the verses. 21 Savage's third verse in particular sounds unjustifiably weak, and Drake's second verse sounds lazy, along with making me want to do this.
I fuck with her, and fuck with her, and her. I hit up her, tell him do the for sure.
But you know what the most insulting thing about this song is? The chorus. It'd be one thing if all the chorus was just the two of them mumbling gang shit, that's all I'm on, but listen to the transition into the first chorus.
Know the dogs had to hit on where we knew it hurts.
Gang shit, that's all I'm on.
Why are they coming in early? They're not on the beat there. Recording software is set up in such a way where it visualizes each bar and lets you hear a click track while you're recording that there's no way anyone, let alone a professional producer, can make a mistake this easy. The drums are doing a fill using 16th notes, and the beginning of the chorus sounds like it's entering in a shuffle feel. But this is nothing compared to how the second chorus starts.
Ain't shit, that's all I'm on.
Are you serious? This time they're aware that the chorus isn't starting on beat, and they shave off the beginning of the clip so it plays on the beat when they could have just as easily shifted it forward a smidge so you wouldn't lose the G in gang and end up with ang shit. For crying out loud, this isn't a song about Avatar: The Last Airbender. Fuck, even if I didn't have a degree in music technology or any of the recording studio experience that I have, I still think I'd have a better idea of how these kinds of mistakes are fixed. It's so easy. I don't believe for a second that this was intentional, and if it was, then this is one of the dumbest production choices I've ever heard. You're professionals, Metro Boomin and Peter Lee Johnson. You should know better than to be this goddamn lazy. Here's to hoping Drake doesn't decide to whine at me in DMs like he did with Anthony Fantano. He actually leaked his own DMs himself once he saw that Fantano wasn't going to exacerbate whatever drama he was trying to start because he has better things to do, so don't get any idea that I'm leaking something I shouldn't. Anyway, I get that Fantano is the most popular music reviewer on the internet, but you'd think someone like Drake would be famous enough to not care about what some insignificant melon with hipster glasses has to say about his music, let alone what a dork wearing aviators with a channel 1% the size of Fantano's has to say. Either way, the shit is embarrassing. Number 5. Well, this is a first. Second time I've talked about a song that has the same title as a song I previously talked about in this series. Dove Cameron is the next in line of pop stars that got their start on the Disney Channel before graduating into the world of making songs that are, shall we say, more mature. This is her breakout single, Boyfriend, which I'll refer to as Boyfriend number 2 throughout the segment so as to not confuse it with the last boyfriend I talked about, and there's a lot about it that's really discomforting. Maybe you've forgotten about this, but there was this one song from 2015 called Girl Crush that a bunch of people assumed was about a girl having a crush on another girl, since, you know, that's kind of what a girl crush implies. In actuality, that song was about being jealous of a girl for being with a guy she likes, which is much different than having a straight up crush on the girl. Boyfriend number 2 is basically the song everyone thought Girl Crush would be, mixed with Treat You Better by Sean, Roger Mendez, and Girlfriend by Avril Lavigne. Something I should also mention, since it's important to the context of the song, is that Dove is bisexual. Why is this important? Because this is a song about wanting to steal a girl that's in a relationship with a guy. So much like the aforementioned Treat You Better, she talks about how she could be a better boyfriend than the guy she's with, along with saying, I could be such a gentleman. The unfortunate thing right off the bat is that Dove isn't a male, nor is there any indication that that's how she identifies. So much like Girl Crush, she's using words incorrectly.
You keep using the word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
The other main problem I have with this song is that we don't know whether or not this girl is also bi, and while I'm by no means one of those people that believe that the LGBT community has an agenda to convert all the straights, oh no, this song doesn't help quell that paranoia for the people that do have that fear, and makes it sound a lot more realistic than it deserves. Dove sounds like she's trying to manipulate this girl into believing she's into women. Not only do I really hate when people of any sexual orientation do that to anyone, it shows no respect at all for this person's boundaries. There's one particular lyric that highlights probably the biggest problem with this song. What am I gonna do? Not grab your wrist. Not only does that emphasize what I was saying a little bit ago about how Dove doesn't respect this person's boundaries, but it also makes the song sound quite rapey. And this leads to a crucial question that needs to be raised about songs like this. What would your reaction be if a man were singing that line? You'd probably think he's an inconsiderate potential sex offender. I don't like that I have to say this because it's really something that should be common knowledge, but women that do things like that need to be held to the same standard you'd hold a man to, whether the person she's pursuing is a man or another woman. There's a reason that South Park episode about the teacher having a love affair with Ike is held up as amazingly as it has. Actually, there's multiple reasons, but you get what I mean. And along with that, if we're gonna call Treat You Better the nice guy anthem that it is, Boyfriend number 2 here is without a doubt the female equivalent. Women are just as capable of being sleazy and disrespectful of boundaries as men, and if Avril Lavigne didn't prove that before already, this song sets it in stone. It should go without saying that I'm all for LGBT people finding love and having the happiest of relationships with whoever they want as long as both parties are consenting, but this is not how you get that. If someone isn't of a similar sexual orientation as you, and I'm saying similar because bi people are just as capable of being in homosexual relationships with either gay or other bi people as they are heterosexual relationships, and fuck the black and white absolutists to say otherwise, you respect that and move on. Same with if they're already taken and happy with the person they're with. You don't pull that shit on them. And that's why the song is pretty goddamn disgusting. Number 4. Well, if it isn't my old friend Kodak Black, the rapist that whines about racism himself. One of my biggest regrets throughout my time making videos is not putting his song Tunnel Vision at number 1 in Worst Songs of 2017, as it's a song that's probably frustrated me more than any other song I've talked about in this series not by Meghan Trainor. Even aside from how I have a much higher standard for my content now than I even did 5 years ago, that's a big part of why Worst Songs of 2017 isn't a video of mine I look back particularly fondly on. But let me tell you, I was not expecting Kodak Black to come back. I was under the impression that he basically fucked off after that certain song and entered the land of irrelevance, and any attempt at a comeback would be ignored or rejected. I was not expecting him to give validation to the people that think that someone being able to stay afloat after being given the cancel treatment is proof cancel culture doesn't exist. And I'm sure you know how I feel about that misconception. It's weird how Super Gremlin sounds like the kind of rap that was really pervasive throughout 2017 to a pretty disturbing extent. From the trappy beat to the slurry delivery that you can barely make out, the sound has me thinking, are we really at a point where we're nostalgic for 2017? I mean, I know I have my own nostalgia for 2015 and 2016, as weird as that probably sounds, but 2017 is a time I could really do without. I remember much of the stuff I put on my worst list that year was mumble trap rap stuff, so you can tell this isn't a sound I'm really itching for a throwback to. I really can't stand Kodak's voice. He sounds like he's trying to be ahead of the beat, and again, slurring his way through his bars to the point where he sounds somewhat out of breath. Looking at the lyrics, he sounds angry and violent, like he wants revenge. It's not like I can't understand where that anger comes from, since the dude was in jail before getting pardoned by Donald friggin' Trump literally on his last day in office. But even if you were to be sympathetic towards his ramblings in 2017 about how the feds only want him behind bars because of his skin color as opposed to, oh, I don't know, the actual crimes he committed, he's not making it any easier here. He sounds just as unlikable as he did back then, and he isn't making a great case for himself.
I done went cage to stage of the case. Now free me, baby, can't keep me, baby. I beat them cases, they already hate me. They gon' want me dead when I'm on probation.
Another thing that sounds really unnerving is the pitched up vocals in the chorus. According to Genius, this song is aimed at a rapper by the name of Jackboy, who was a childhood friend of Kodak's, that turned on him for reasons I don't think I really need to do too much digging into to develop an understanding of, at least not for the purpose of this video. So I'm guessing the pitched up vocals are meant to represent Kodak as a kid, lamenting at what's become of their friendship. But kid vocals have always been a thing I really hate hearing unless it's in the context of a movie musical, and they especially sound awkward in rap songs. Maybe this is a byproduct of my disliking of children, but yeah, not a fan of those vocals in the chorus here. Is Super Gremlin as awful as Tunnel Vision? No. A song like that's gonna stand out in my mind as being one of the worst songs I've ever heard, much easier than Super Gremlin ever could. And I'm confident that this won't be a song I'll end up regretting not putting higher in this video like I did with Tunnel Vision, among other songs I've discussed in this series, but I'm still very much displeased at this song's existence. Hopefully we don't need to hear about Kodak Black anymore following this. Contrary to what he said in that last clip I played, I don't want him dead. I just want him to be a very tiny footnote on 2010's rap, the kind that you need to squint super hard to see at the bottom of the paper. Number 3. Whenever I've talked about Drake in these videos in recent times, I've mentioned the role memes play in a song's circulation. It's become a major factor in how a song is able to break out to the masses and have the shelf life that it does. Big Energy by Lotto, however, reverses that idea by creating a song around an already existing meme. What meme would this be?
I can tell you got big energy.
That's certainly a phrase I haven't heard in a long time. Like, when was the last time you heard someone utter the phrase big dick energy? 2018? Was Lotto cryogenically frozen for 4 years, or does she genuinely think that's still something people say in 2022? Let alone that it was even all that clever or funny of a phrase back then. Dead memes aside, this sounds like a wannabe Cardi B song, as it contains a lot of the hallmarks that make her music as insufferable as it is. Lotto sounds trashy, but not as abrasive, even despite some pretty cringe lyrics.
Make 'em sing to this pussy like a melody.
It's like she was trying to make a less explicit WAP with how much talk of fucking the song provides. That song at least had lines that were chuckle-worthy in spite of how overall cringy I found the song to be. But Big Energy doesn't even make an attempt at trying to sound comedic. Take for example lines like these.
Hood bitch, fuck you in a bunny. Pussy juicy, Minute Maid.
The mentioning of these things people tend to associate with babies gives me the impression that she likes role-playing with her guy and making him dress up like a baby wanting his juice. And as much as I try to not be too judgmental of people's kinks, particularly the ones that don't involve anyone getting harmed physically or mentally, stuff like that is pretty unsettling. Especially since Lotto also makes mention of
3, 2, 1, camera rolling.
It's like, if you like making sex tapes, cool, but that just doesn't sound like something I'd want to tell the world about. There's also a number of mentions of money.
Spinning his mind in the bank. Bad bitch, you get money. Broke niggas to the left, we don't want it.
This song is supposed to be about a guy that exudes big dick energy, as in the kind of man that carries himself in such a way that even if he doesn't have what people would consider a large dong, he might as well have one. With how much emphasis you're placing on money, are you sure this isn't one of those rich dudes that uses his money to mask the kind of flaws that would contradict the idea of him having big dick energy? I mean, he might have a huge dick, I don't know, but this is coming off really superficial. And I'm realizing now how long I've been talking about penises, and I'd really like to stop. Bottom line, the weird fetishes and the song being built around a dead meme make Big Energy one of the cringiest songs I've ever talked about in this series. Moving on.
Fuck you, you fucking
number 2. Much like Kodak Black, Nicki Minaj is another artist I was not expecting to see have a hit this year. I knew she never exactly went away, but I always assumed for the last 5 or 6 years or so that somewhere along the way, she basically passed her annoying, provocative female rapper torch over to Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion with how much I wasn't hearing her name come up a lot. I complained about her a lot in the Worst Songs of 2012 video I made this year, and it seemed almost cryptic that Super Freaky Girls started popping up not too long later, and you'll understand why in due time. ARTV mentioned in his Worst Songs of 2022 video that this was the year of the overbearing, painfully lazy sampling, and that was definitely something I noticed this year. 2 songs that I was wanting to talk about in this video but didn't see on the year-end chart were I'm Good Blue by David Guetta and BB Rexa, which samples of all songs I'm Blue Dabba Dee by Eiffel 65. And Betty Get Money by Young Gravy, which samples, I kid you not, Never Gonna Give You Up by Rick Astley. I get that these songs are great memes, but that's kind of why I think they should be left alone. I say all this because Super Freaky Girl samples Super Freak by
Rick James, bitch!
Why does this song need to be sampled again? It was already sampled very prominently in You Can't Touch This by MC Hammer 32 years ago. And let's not forget how that in turn was sampled in the song I may or may not have put as my number 1 in the aforementioned Worst Songs of 2012 video. Not to mention, this is the second time I've talked about a Nicki Minaj song with a very overbearing sample, the first time being with Anaconda and its sample of Baby Got Back by Sir Mix-a-Lot in War Songs of 2014. Super Freaky Girl is quite literally built around the exact sample from Super Freak MC Hammer used to the point where it doesn't do anything to differentiate itself from the original. It'd be one thing if she sampled a different part of the song, but there's nothing unique about this beat. There isn't even an arbitrary distinction like what Vanilla Ice tried to use to justify how Ice Ice Baby doesn't straight up jack the bass line from Under Pressure by Queen and David Bowie.
Ding 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 diggy ding ding. Ding 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 diggy ding ding. Ding 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 ding. That's the way theirs goes. Ours goes ding 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 diggy ding ding. Ding 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 diggy ding ding.
You stupid.
So I'm left wondering what her point even was with using this sample when we could just listen to the original, or hell, the original song to sample it. I don't even mind that song, it was at least cool for its time. The chorus is so dumb. She basically goes, "Hey kids, spelling is fun!" and tries to spell the word freak and gets me concerned for her literacy. F-R-E-A-K. I don't know about you, but last I checked, freak isn't spelled F-R-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E. E-E-E-E-E-E-E-E-A-K. There's only supposed to be one E, not 50,000. But that's nothing compared to how she spells it next. R-E-A-K-A-K-A-K-E-A-K. This isn't even the word freak being spelled. It's free yak 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 yak. Why? This isn't even a hard word to spell.
R-E-E, that spells free. Creditreport.com, baby.
The lyrics aren't really anything new for Nicki, so I won't spend too much time on them, other than making note that this is yet another song that makes a mention of pie.
Wetter than umbrellas and stickier than apple pie.
What I will say though is that the flow in the first verse is unbelievably boring. Like, I know I've never found Nicki to be an incredibly skilled rapper, but you'd think someone who's been in the game as long as she has would be above this rapping for Jesus level of basic flow. The flow in the second verse is better, but that's only because MC Hammer used that exact flow on his song that uses the Super Freak sample, let alone the parody of the song in the Peoria episode of Family Guy. I get feeling nostalgic for You Can't Touch This, but this really isn't the way to trigger that nostalgia. If anything, it makes me resent the fact that You Can't Touch This was even made with how much Nicki just wants to copy him. And again, this is coming from someone that doesn't mind that song. Songs like this are pretty much always made by artists that have overstayed their welcome. I doubt this will be the last we hear from Nicki Minaj, but with how lackluster Super Freaky Girl is, even compared to other songs of hers I've talked about in this series, maybe this will be the whimper note she walks out on. There's already a number of newer female rappers that are following in her footsteps, the ones I've always referred to as clones, and I've often wondered if there's still a place for Nicki amidst all this oversaturation. No matter what, while Super Freaky Girl is far from the worst song I've heard from her, it's definitely the most boring. Maybe that makes it arguably worse than songs like Stupid Ho or Anaconda, but still not a good look. I mentioned earlier 2 songs that I was wanting to see on the year-end chart that didn't end up making it on. I don't think I have too much else to say about I'm Good Blue and Betty Get Money, other than how they use even cheesier samples than Super Freaky Girl. I'll bookmark them for next year, even though I'm skeptical if they'll be on the chart if not even Girls Want Girls by Drake could make it on this year. For now, I'm going to talk about another song in the Dishonorable Mentions section that didn't make the year-end chart that I'm bookmarking for next year, Hold Me Closer by Britney Spears and Sir Elton John. I feel kind of bad featuring this song on here, considering Elton John is an artist I've always had a lot of respect for. I shouldn't even need to mention that countless timeless hits he's had throughout his career, let alone co-writing the songs in my favorite Disney movie. He is a force to be reckoned with in music. One thing I've always admired about him is his ability to collaborate with other artists, even ones that aren't exactly within the style he's known for, such as when he teamed up with Ozzy Osbourne on his song Ordinary Man, or artists that are much younger and more current like Lady Gaga, who's also the godmother to his children. He's been doing a lot of collaborations with newer pop artists this year, and we may or may not be talking about one in the best songs video coming up next, but Hold Me Closer with Britney Spears is a song that puts such a weird taste in my mouth that I have a hard time deciding how I feel about him doing these team-up remixes of his songs. This song remixes and makes prominent usage of his classic song from 1971's Madman Across the Water, Tiny Dancer, one of the first songs of his I ever heard, back in the days when my dad used to burn compilation CDs of songs he liked that he'd play in his car. It's a really pretty song, maybe not my favorite of his, but an undeniably excellent composition, and that's why it hurts seeing it repurposed like this. The instrumentation sounds really washed out and generic. I feel like this could be any song from recent years, and the lyrics and Tiny Dancer parts were just arbitrarily appropriated. There's a guitar fill from the original that sounds really classy in that context, but hearing it used here always makes me say out loud, oh god. I also really hate how Elton's voice sounds doused in all that autotune. I'm not going to say it's unnecessary, A, because of what I said before about it being a standard for production, and B, because of how old Elton was at the time of recording. It's just that this type of autotuning just doesn't sound good on his voice, especially when the Hold Me Closer part is pitched up like, hold me closer. Listening to the song makes me feel like Drake in the series finale of Drake and Josh, where the producer completely butchers his song. I know there was a lot of drama regarding Britney Spears and the conservatorship she was trapped in by her father that she was recently freed from. I haven't really been following that situation outside of seeing Repsion do a video about it. I know, bring on the Repgate references. Because to put it bluntly, I really don't care about Britney Spears that much. That's not to say that I don't think the conservatorship was a valid thing to raise concern over, or that her release from it wasn't justified. Britney's just never been an artist I was ever really invested in. I never liked her music, and this situation doesn't change my opinion on it. I mean, listen to this. I get wanting to support Britney's comeback after all that she's been through with the conservatorship, but even if I were to take Elton John and Tiny Dancer out of the equation, I'd still really not like how this sounds. Also, even in this remix, I still can't be the only one that hears this. Hold me closer, Tiny Dancer. Hey guys, Future Shades here. Just figured I would cut in here, talk about a song that I also did not see on the year-end chart, and I don't expect to see it on the year-end chart next year at all. Not that I really expected it to be on the year-end chart anyway, since I knew even at the time that there's no way that it was going to be making it on. It's way too corny. Not a lot of people were really talking about it throughout the year. I didn't even make note on my list of songs to look out for on the year-end chart that I might want to talk about in my year-end videos, because I just knew that it wasn't going to be there. To be honest, the reason I didn't write about this in my script is because I actually forgot about the song until I started seeing it in some people's worst lists. I'm talking about the Victoria's Secret song. It's the kind of song that's definitely geared for a list like mine, but I forgot about it. I figured I would just give a few thoughts on it, since I imagine people are probably curious what I have to say about it. It's cringe. It's basically a Meghan Trainor song, like the kind of song that Meghan Trainor would write about body positivity and calling out unrealistic beauty standards, and with the added bonus of having what I've referred to as a t-shirt line. Like, you would definitely see the line, I know Victoria's Secret, she was made up by a dude, on a t-shirt that you'd see a bunch of uptight feminists wear. And it's not like this is like a huge revelation. It's not like the song is saying something that we haven't known for years. Like, even when I was 14 and really liked looking at pictures of hot girls, I knew that the people in the Victoria's Secret magazines do not look realistic. There's no way that that stuff can be like legitimately pulled off. But that's all I really have to say about it. It should say something that I didn't even remember the song existed by the time I started my script. It should speak volumes as to just how unmemorable and lackluster the song is. Anyway, back to the video. Also, I hate how this is becoming a trend, where Christmas songs are streamed so much that they become eligible for inclusion on the year-end chart. Yes, All I Want for Christmas Is You and Rockin' Around the Christmas Tree are both back at numbers 65 and 80, respectively. And this year, we also have Jingle Bell Rock by Bobby Helms joining them at number 86, and A Holly Jolly Christmas by Burl Ives at number 89. What's next? Is Wonderful Christmas Time gonna be on next year's chart? It's like, look, I get that we all love Christmas and people like playing these songs during the holiday season, but do we really need to see them on a list of the most popular songs of the year? I mean, it's not like people continued to stream these songs throughout the year after Christmas ended. This is getting to be a bit much, don't you think? Fuck you, you fucking Number 1. Let me begin this segment with a recitation of a really cheesy joke I remember making about Must Destroy All's damage control video back in 2017. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, V, W, X, Y, Z. Which letter was missing?
No, you!
The song is very similar to that joke as far as rearranging the alphabet goes, but at least my joke was clever. So, A, B, C, D, E, F, U by Gale. This song is trash. Easily one of the biggest no-duh songs I've put at number 1 in the worst song series since Yummy, and that was only 2 years ago. You remember in my best songs video that year when I mentioned how I was looking forward all year to getting to talk about Blinding Lights by The Weeknd in the number 1 spot? It was just like that here. Ever since I first heard ABCDEFU at the tail end of last year, I knew it was going to be a shoo-in for this list, and as I heard it more in the coming months, I knew that no other song was going to come out the other side as the worst hit song of 2022. What kind of sucks though about this is the guitar and punky elements being present in the song. It's the kind of stuff I'm usually totally on board with being incorporated in pop songs, hence the praise I gave to Good For You by Olivia Rodrigo last year. This song, however, is so goddamn immature that I don't even care to overlook that fact just because it sounds like something I'd otherwise enjoy. That's actually pretty similar as to why I didn't like Driver's License, as well as the song of Olivia's I talked about in last year's Worst Songs video, Traitor. I get that both Gayle and Olivia are teenagers, but as whiny as I found certain songs of Olivia's to be, she at least showed that when she buckles down and puts her mind to it, she can write some genuine and even fun-sounding breakup songs. Gayle, though, sounds like a bitch. The lyrics in the verses are really surface level, and the chorus is driven by pure spite. She lists off things about her ex that she's wanted to fuck off, from his family and friends, to his car, to even his couch and the way his voice sounds. But of course, she also has to throw in a jab at, and I quote, that shit you call art. Which, as a musician and content creator, that's something I definitely take a bit of personal issue with. For one, with how broad of a concept art is, there's so much that can be considered art. For two, I can't help but think that the art this guy makes is actually well made, and I'm sure it was this very art that at least played a part in what got you interested in him in the first place. As someone that's had friendships end with people in the past that would go on to say similar things about both music I've made and my guitar playing in general and my YouTube content, it's obvious you're only calling his art shit now because you're not dating him or within his friend circles anymore. Now, I don't know what kind of art this guy makes, this is all pure speculation, but what I do know is that a good artist is a good artist, no matter what you think of him as a person, and if you were really mature, you'd acknowledge that. Something else about the chorus I need to quickly mention is regarding this line. Everybody but your dog, you can all fuck off. I get that we all love doggies, and this guy's doggy was a very good boy, because all dogs are very good boys, but by your own admission, this is his dog. If you're not going to be with this guy anymore, that unfortunately means you're not going to have access to the dog, especially since he probably doesn't want you anywhere near him after all the shit you've been saying here. So... sorry! Another thing that went through my mind a lot whenever I heard this song is how musically and lyrically it's basically trying to be two songs, Fuck You by Lily Allen and Everything About You by Ugly Kid Joe. It's even in the same key as the Lily Allen song, E major, and makes use of the minor 3 chord, G sharp minor, and the minor 6 chord, C sharp minor. The chord progressions sound damn near identical. And the cherry on top is that these are both songs about a girl saying fuck you to someone. Now, I don't like the Lily Allen song either, since I've always found it to be bitchy, pretentious, and like a more polished war on women song. And if you don't know, that's a band I really hate. Not just because of their radfem ideology, but also because they sound like total garbage. But if I could give the Lily Allen song some credit, it at least has lyrics that sound like they took a modicum of thought, in addition to being clear as to who it is the song is targeted at. Compared to that, ABCDEFU sounds like vague ramblings one does when they're unquestioningly mad and just don't care. Now, as for Everything About You, I'm sure the glam metal fans in my audience watching this are already familiar with Ugly Kid Joe. But for those not in the know, Ugly Kid Joe is a band from the early 90s that combined a glam metal sound with a sort of alternative metal image, and they were one of the last really successful bands from that scene. They got much of their notoriety from having some ties to Saturday Night Live, with comedic actress Julia Sweeney playing her character Pat, saying this at the beginning of the song in question.
Are you the guys on the beach who hate everything? Is this some sort of hip music that I don't understand?
As well as the song being featured in Wayne's World, which of course starred 2 seasoned SNL cast members, Mike Myers and Dana Carvey, playing their recurring characters from the sketch of the same name. If you listen to a lot of Ugly Kid Joe's songs, you can tell that there's a comedic edge present there. Like for example, they have a song Neighbor that always made me think of the relationship between Homer Simpson and Ned Flanders. Anyway, Everything About You, not to be confused with I Hate Everything About You by 3 Days Grace, is the song Ugly Kid Joe is best known for. And as you probably guessed, it's a song about Whitfield Crane, which is such a dorky yet badass name, listing off things he hates. And much like in ABCDEFU, he spends a considerable amount of time talking about how he hates the girl's family. even though he later admits to kissing her sister. He might not be as personal towards the girl as Gail is with her ex, but Everything About You serves a very similar purpose. The difference being, just like what I said to differentiate WAP from Steel Panther, ABCDEFU doesn't have the comedic edge that Ugly Kid Joe was always known for. Nothing about the song is indicating that we're supposed to interpret it as comedic. And if that isn't enough, there's also a clean version of the song that exists. Okay. It's one thing to appropriate Ugly Kid Joe's shtick, along with basically equating the letter F with the word fuck, but this is a straight ripoff of one of the best pop bangers of the last decade. The way Fuck You by CeeLo Green was censored for radio play was by replacing the word fuck with forget.
Can you forgetting knock?
Sorry, I forgot.
Well, the next time you forget, I'll cut off your Dixie cup and forget you in the ear with it. And then you'll always remember never to forget. Now, what was so forgetting important?
It's dumb, but that's what they did. While I get that forget is probably the best word that starts with F that fits the context of the song while maintaining its intended impact, is there not a different word to use that wasn't already used for a far superior song? This just makes you look lazy. For fuck's sake, WAP did a better job at making a clean edit. And that makes me think of goddamn Fruit Gushers. Also, there's another song I always think of when I hear this song. Okay, you need to stop now. Of course I wouldn't be doing this video justice if I didn't bring up the elephant in the room about this song. Gail is actually an industry plant. I know that's a term that gets thrown around a lot at pop artists that get super huge out of nowhere, but there's actually proof of this, which I of course have to shout out my boy Sean from Diamond X Studios for making me aware of what I'm about to show here. So, as we know, Gail got big on our favorite place in the world, TikTok. In July of last year, she posted a TikTok asking her followers to post song ideas for her in the comments. A user by the name of Nancy Berman, wonder if this is any relation to Harold Berman, comments asking, can you write a breakup song using the alphabet? Weird idea, but okay. And the result was...
A, B, C, D, E, F, U, and your mom, and your sister, and your job.
Now you're probably thinking,
okay, so the song came as a result of a TikTok comment, so what? It's not like it's any different from what Jax Films does in Yai.
This wouldn't be important were it not for the fact that Nancy Berman, the person that left that TikTok comment, is actually a manager and digital marketing specialist at Atlantic Records, the label Gail is signed with. So it's not enough that the concept of the song being written based off of a TikTok comment is saying something about how haphazardly ABCDEFU was thrown together, but there's also a layer of it all being fabricated by Atlantic Records. So thanks. Thanks a lot. As boomerish as I know this probably sounds to a lot of people, I do not have a particularly high opinion about TikTok and the kind of content that gets made there. But one thing that I could never take away from it is the role it appears to be playing in helping independent artists to circulate. Obviously, as I talked about with Falling by Trevor Daniel and Worst Songs of 2020, this does mean that major labels are going to swoop in, strike while the iron is hot, and reap the benefits of the artist's virality. I've interned in A&R before back in college, and I know for a fact that this is how the shit works with them. But I never would have imagined that they would use the platform to straight up manipulate a rags to riches story. That's just a whole new level of bullshit for this already shitty song. ABCDEFU is garbage, for sure one of the most frustrating songs I've ever talked about in this series. Here's to hoping we never have to experience anything like this again as we go down the path to make pop music great again. As much as 2022 had its difficulties, it's not going to stop me from walking into 2023 with a positive attitude. 2021 was the year I leapt into the new life I established for myself with my apartment after a miserable 2020. 2022 was the year I detached from things that proved to not be beneficial for my mental and even physical well-being. And I'm hoping 2023 can be a year for more pivoting and overall growth in a number of different areas.
You are the star of a movie. And this is the part of the movie where you get your heart broken, where the world tests you and people treat you like shit. But it has to happen this way. Otherwise, the end of the movie, when you get everything you want, won't feel as rewarding.
I'm turning 30 next year, and I'd be lying if I were to say that doesn't give me good feelings. But I'm hopeful that I can get to a point where it won't mean anything, or at least that it won't mean as much as people worry it does. Also taking place next year is the 10-year anniversary of this channel's creation, and I do have a couple special things in mind for the occasion, so stay tuned for that. Other than that, thank you very much for watching this video. Stay tuned for the top 10 best songs of 2022 coming up next. I'm Shades, and I'll see you next time. Will anyone like us when we're 23?
Let's find out.
Got